Welcome to Locked On Golden Knights. VGK dropping its first game of the season. Calgary powers its way past the Golden Knights 3-2.
You're Locked On Golden Knights, your daily podcast on the Vegas Golden Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hi again, everyone. Tony Cardasco, along with Chris Golick from Las Vegas. On Twitter, you could find us at Tony Dasco, at TD Chris G, at Locked On VGK, and go to our YouTube channel, Locked On VGK, and please subscribe. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Again, our podcast is free and available wherever you get your podcast. And Chris, the final from the Saddle Dome last night, the Flames 3 and VGK 2, but it really wasn't that close. Golden Knights dominated pretty much in every aspect, every phase of the game. The Golden Knights led in this game 2-0. They got out to that early lead. We talked about the fourth line, William Carrier with the first goal of the game, and he scored his first goal of the season. It was a whiff by Jacob Markstrom, really. Had it go off of his mitt. And then they call him mitts, right? Still, okay. And Brett Howden with his first goal of the season in that game. VGK kept in the game. Again, with the heroics of Logan Thompson last night. We'll talk about that coming up later on. And him between the pipes, he was stellar last night. We talk about the second period. This is where the destruction began for VGK. What happened was VGK could not clear the zone. I think they got frustrated. They were overpowered for sure. Perhaps, I don't know, fatigue set in, no telling. But 6 penalties resulting in a couple of Flames power play goals. And let's just go through those penalties real fast. Whitecloud on the roughing penalty, Martinez tripping Tyler Toffoli, and that resulted in a goal. But that goal was waved off for goalie interference by Lindholm, Carrier interference on Kevin Rooney, and then 3 penalties. And maybe there's a rhyme or reason. Drawn by Calgary's Brett Ritchie on Braden McNabb, William Karlsson on the cross-check, Zach Whitecloud again. And the result there were a couple of power play goals. Elias Lindholm actually comes back and scores. And Tyler Toffoli, 11 shots on goal. 11 shots on goal in those 6 power play opportunities. So let's start there. Domination also continued, Chris, in the third period of play. And again, it was the inability for VGK to clear the zone.
Sorry, I thought you were going to go for another 5 seconds. I had to sneak in some more coffee. It's early. Yeah, I mean, Tony,
I went long enough, man.
you hit the nail on the head in every regard there. A William Karlsson cross-checking penalty, it's going to hurt his Lady Bing consideration later in the year, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, Tony, you said everything. When you have that many penalties in one period, you're going to traditionally teams have 2 power play, 2 penalty kill units, and then they'll have some players they interchange. Maybe teams will have a third line just in case when things like this happen. And that's just what happened here. When you are playing against the best players in the NHL, down 20% of your manpower, I guess you can call it, you're going to be in a terrible spot. And the fact that they only got 2 goals in the second period is actually something to celebrate in some strange way. Fatigue certainly sets in. And Braden McNabb made a point in the post-game interviews last night that when you have this many kills in a row, sometimes you're losing some of your more skilled players. You don't see Eichel out there killing too many penalties as a prime example. Kessel's not going to kill too many penalties. So you're taking those players out of the game momentarily. And the fact that this was only a 3-2 loss says two things. One, this was not a 1-goal game by any means. This was a much bigger domination efforts, if you will, by the Flames. And the fact that it was only 3-2, I know Logan Thompson's coming up later, but LT, a ton of credit for an absolutely remarkable game and doing what the goalie is supposed to do, which gives the team a chance to win, which 4 games into the season, 4 outstanding goaltending efforts to start the season.
Yeah, and VGK lacked that physicality that Bruce Cassidy would like to see. That's where I think it all begins. It starts there because, again, they were just getting pushed around and moved. The game-winning goal was scored by Michael Backlund. That came from the Blake Coleman assist from behind the net. And 2 things stood out in that game-winning goal. I thought Alec Martinez was out of position out in front of the net, and Jack Eichel was late arriving to even defend against Backlund. And we'll talk about the top 6 as well. And they just laid an absolute egg in the game last night, but they have to have a better effort defensively. They have to.
No doubt. And going back to that game-winning goal, on top of Alec Martinez being caught flat-footed, you have Pietrangelo, who couldn't decide if he was going to chase or hold, and that's also part of what left that wide open lane in front of the net. And definitely the first thing I saw was Eichel late getting there. I actually had to check that third goal to see if that was also a power play goal, because I was going to ask myself, why was Eichel out there on the kill? But it wasn't a power play goal. But still, Eichel has to be better defensively. But this is it's a growing pain, right? And I'm not sure if you were going to take me down this path. I'm going to put us down there anyway. We mentioned in our header, I guess, that Cassidy said the team didn't pass the test, was the terminology that he used. And my first knee-jerk reaction was, man, that's pretty tough. Like, why are we don't need to be talking like that in game number 4 of the season. But the first thing I thought of right after that was Max Pacioretty and his comments in the offseason about this being a country club atmosphere. And, it doesn't matter if you win or lose, the fans still love you and people are out washing their cars, blah, 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 all that stuff. And the fact that Cassidy is maybe being a little harder on the team than deserved, I think is a good thing. And I think that shows Cassidy is passing his first test, if you will, a tough loss in Calgary where the team was absolutely outworked. So this right here tells me that Cassidy is going to keep VGK focused and hold everybody accountable. I'm curious if there's any reports as to what type of practice they have. I'm not sure if they're flying back this morning.
Today. Yeah, they're off today.
They're off today, so that means they're traveling today. So there's probably only going to be a pregame skate tomorrow, and there's not going to be too much. Those are pretty laid back versus what the practices are. But I'm still curious as to how his locker room interactions were after the game with the players. Is he the type of coach that just undressed everybody and went after all the kids for a rough loss? I hope not. I think we would have got an inkling of something had that happened. But either way, I think the response from Cassidy and the team, it's a little bit different than last year, right? It's a little bit different than last year where, we're going to burn the tape on this one. We're going to get by. We're going to get back to practice and work on it. No, I really felt like that it was a tough loss for the team. I feel like Cassidy took this one tough. And this is a chance for Cassidy to set the path, if you will, for how things like this are going to be handled after, you get DeBoer up there, he'll be up there smiling, rough game, just didn't go our way, and versus, Cassidy, who, again, honest Bruce Cassidy is up there really giving us a perspective of how he feels. And let's see what the response is on Thursday. I mean, Thursday's game went from a trap game to, a pretty important game, because now you got Colorado coming in. And if you give up the game on Thursday, all of a sudden you're staring down the barrel of a 3-game losing streak potentially.
Yeah, we still don't know how good this team is. The Kool-Aid kids were at it again last night. Okay, so radio and TV last night, I had everything going on back and forth, and they were mentioning an awful lot that these are the top 2 teams. They'll be the top 2 teams at the end of the season. Enough of the hype job, okay? I think Calgary and Edmonton will probably be at the top.
Edmonton just lost to Buffalo at home, though, so who knows?
Well, yeah, who knows with that team, right? They're still schizophrenic, but you have to say, I don't believe right now that VGK is up there in the same sentence as Calgary. Calgary, I think, stands alone, and that team is going to be really tough if Markstrom doesn't chase imaginary pucks around or whatever he was doing. I still think they're going to be there in the end. I don't believe VGK and Calgary are the top 2 teams. They might be right now, okay, for the moment, based on their records, but not at the end of the season. I'm sorry.
I mean, let's see what happens. And as of this moment, sure, Calgary is a clear notch above the Vegas Golden Knights based off this game. But, same breath, Tony, it was a rough game. It was a rough second period. 7 minutes to go, Riley Smith rings one off the post on the power play. If that puck is an inch the other direction, maybe we're having a different conversation about VGK stealing a point in a gritty game where they faced plenty of diversity. And there's always a twist, right? There's always a twist, always a positive and a negative. In this game, there was more negative than positive, more or less the second period. And it is kind of funny just going through all the Facebook and Twitter comments. Oh, the team is bad again. They lost the game. Let's see. What do we see? Fire Cassidy. Where's the top six? We're paying Stone too much. And I'm sure there was a Flower comment somewhere in there. Why did we trade Flower for nothing? Pacioretty for nothing? Fire Kelly McCrimmon, blow the whole thing up. Like, folks, just stop it. Stop it.
And at least Cassidy, he was very transparent, and he just said, hey, we weren't cheated in this game. They won. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's just being transparent and
honest.
I have to believe between the second and third periods, I think he loses his cool. We've heard about that one incident where he was upset about the lack of the movement on the power play for VGK. I think it was in Los Angeles, maybe from the start. But I'm sure he undressed them there at between the second and third periods. And then third period as well, right? Domination continues. I mean, this should have been a 3 or a 4 goal victory by Calgary, despite what your son might think.
No, it's I hear what you're saying there. I hear what
so
you're
what
saying
did your son said what last night?
Oh, so we're at my daughter's, here's the whole story. We're at my daughter's tumbling class last night, and he finishes his homework and stuff. We're kind of watching, and he asked me, he said, what do I think the score is going to be tonight? And I said, I think it's going to be a higher scoring game, but I think the Golden Knights are going to find a way. I was just, going with the streak, and I'll ride it till it ends, so to speak. And then he asked me, he said, what do you think? What did Tony say? I said, oh, Tony thinks they're going to lose. And my son just looks at me and says, shocker.
Well, at least I'm trying to be honest here. And I thought
you were right.
Overmatched.
You were right.
But I thought that they were overmatched in that game. Again, Calgary at home, and just, getting out to a quick start. They look pretty good at times. They really do. They look like an absolute contender. And perhaps I'm not on the Kool-Aid, folks. The President's Cup probably favorites right now. I would have to think, perhaps.
It's all fair. And, it starts with Daryl Sutter. I'll beat the drum on Daryl Sutter being one of the best ever to be behind a bench. And I said yesterday, I'll say it again today, folks, take 5 minutes of your day, especially if you're having a rough day at work or you're stressed out at home. Just put something in for a Daryl Sutter reactions, Daryl Sutter quotes. And he actually had a Gary Law. I'm glad we went down this path now. Gary Lawless put this tweet out there. Daryl Sutter was asked something about the Golden Knights, and Daryl Sutter's response is, well, they got 11 players from Western Canada. And that really, like, Gary Lawless is like, just scratches the surface of how in the know and dialed in someone like Daryl Sutter is, because he probably knows stuff like that about all the teams, and how, knowing where they're from transfers to what they're going to do on the ice. I don't necessarily know how that can happen. Logan Thompson, obviously hometown boy as far as last night's game was concerned, but this Daryl Sutter is an absolute remarkable coach. He's fun. He's entertaining in some very weird. Who was the teacher in Wonder Years? Bueller, or not that guy? The economy teacher, the boring guy, or something like that. Someone out there knows. Someone who likes fun, I'm sure would know. But he has that type of goofy personality that just makes you laugh.
Okay, so the goal that was waved off, was that indeed goalie interference on Nazem Kadri?
All day. So the first thing I saw,
he wasn't pushed.
Exactly, and that's the thing.
I watched
the first
that
time I saw
about
in real
20 times, right? Yeah. And a lot of folks thought that he was pushed into the net. He wasn't.
No. The first thing I saw was after the goal. I saw contact, and my reffing eyes go on right away. My D League recreational officiating eyes go on, And I thought there was interference right in real time. And then when they showed the replay, he did go in there by himself. I don't know if LT's not saving that puck either way. Let's be clear about that. But when you take the opportunity away to make the save or do anything, that's going to come back 99 times out of 100 in that situation. Clear goaltender interference. He went in there first. The puck wasn't even there for a second, and he definitely prevented LT from having a fair opportunity to save that puck in the
Coming up,
paint.
yep, coming up next, the top six was not good last night. And we'll talk about that when we return right here on Locked On Golden Knights. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting information all of this season. Find all the latest player developments, the team matchups, the news, the podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on each and every game that you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to up-to-the-minute scores for every sport that is out there. The fastest and easiest way to check out all of your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, golf, of course, the National Hockey League. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device today to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Tony Cardasco, along with Chris Golick from Las Vegas. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Our podcast is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Please go to our Twitter handle if you haven't yet. We do respond to all the fans. We like to interact. And also, I think we're about a couple of followers away from 1,000 on there. And make sure that you subscribe to Locked On VGK. That is our YouTube channel. And Chris, the Golden Knights weren't good last night, and especially the top six had perhaps its worst effort of this young season. When I went back, I looked at the top six. Okay, so Howden had the goal, and he played pretty well, pretty much. You had Phil Kessel had 3 shots on goal at least. No shots on goal from Stephenson, Stone, or Eichel. And there were 4 penalties from the Blue Liners as well last night. And again, that kept them on the ice for a very long time. I also saw, that Eichel faceoff circle. We talked about how good VGK was in the previous game in the faceoff circle. Jack Eichel was 4 out of 15. He won only 4 faceoffs last night. So again, perhaps a little bit tired, fatigued, or whatever. We saw him arriving late on the game-winning goal. And then that's a lack of effort, right, in the faceoff circle.
So I think sure. I mean, that's fair. I think what I will see your comment and raise your comment with is the fact that VGK was the road team, which means Calgary is the home team, which also means Calgary has the last change and can go ahead and put the right people out there. They can put the right centerman out there who, for whatever reason, there's probably different styles, different ways to take a face off, and there might be ways that match up better. So again, we'll start with credit Daryl Sutter right there. And then the second thing with the last change, you're putting the defensive unit that you want out there against the other team's top players. So again, sure, VGK did not have the best of games. Fatigue is fair because that's the only way you take that many penalties in a single period is if you're fatigued, if you're tired and worn out for whatever reason, even though they had a day off on the road. And, so for whatever reason, 2 days off this week, I just thought about that too. They were off Sunday and now they're off Wednesday. That seems kind of strange. They're not going to get a skate in before they come back or anything like that. But, fatigue, fine. But honestly, I think this is more of a situation where the last change was more favorable to get the matchups out there that Coach Daryl Sutter wanted. Again, I sound like a Daryl Sutter, truther, I guess, so to speak here, and I should because of based on his accolades and everything. But I'm going to chalk a lot of that up to the matchups. 4 for 15 in the faceoff circle. He's 3 faceoffs away from being around average, right? Because like the best centermen are just north of 50% as far as the faceoff circle goes. It's pretty crazy how even of a proposition it is. But if you're like 57, 58% in the faceoff circle, you're remarkable as far as that statistic goes. So sure, Eichel, rough day in the circle, 4 for 15. I don't know if the same place you have that stat, Tony, if you can pull up his season. I'm curious if this was just a one-off or if this is kind of how he's been going for the entire season.
Yeah, I'm not as quick as you with the, with Siri or just looking it up on Google. But and Howden was, I hate to belabor the point, but Howden was also 67% on faceoffs last night. We talked 4 penalties against the Blue Liners. I kind of threw that in there, but Zach Whitecloud did not have a good game either. He had a couple of those penalties, and he also turned the puck over quite a few times last night in that game.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things to look at, and going back, we watched the first thing I did this morning, because I didn't get to catch a whole lot of the game live, a little bit on the radio, a little bit here and there. I was working right up until I had to go ref hockey last night. I guess a shout out to myself. I got to the hockey rink. I had a 9:10 game. I left my house at like 8:50 something because I just got swamped with my work really fast. And I was able to get dressed and on the ice in 8 minutes, which is a personal record for me, folks. So that has nothing to do with this show, but we're talking about it. So I'm just going to get that in there and give myself a kudos for setting a personal record for that. But, going back, watching the highlights this morning, 8 out of every 10 highlights was either a big attempt or a goal by the Flames or a huge save by Logan Thompson. So, not a burn the tape type of game. The fact that it was 3-2 isn't only, pardon me, it's not only a credit to Logan Thompson. The defense had to do something last night. But going back to the top 6, yeah, you definitely need more from the top 6, Tony. 100%. You need more from the top 6. You need more. I don't want to say effort, because I'm sure they were out there trying as hard as they could, but just better execution and simplify things. I guess a question for you, because I didn't watch a whole lot of the game live, but we haven't mentioned this deep into the show. We haven't said anything about him messing with the lineups or anything last night. Was he juggling last night, or was
not so much?
It's kind of hard to get the chance to, given all the PKs, but I just wonder, never tried to get that spark, huh?
No, I didn't really notice that there were no noticeable lineup changes. And I'm just curious if, because Bruce Cassidy just is not one of those guys that stands pat. I think he would come back with some sort of lineup changes for the Winnipeg game. He'll juggle something there for that game, especially, Paul Cotter. Paul Cotter, you could talk about him. It was the first game that he really struggled in last night. And so now do you just kind of, and we know that Cassidy could be especially tough on the younger players, right? I'm sure he went back, evaluated everything. I think Cotter was on the ice for 9:53. I thought I saw something like that, a little under 10 minutes. That's where they wanted to play him, about 10 minutes, but not effective at all. And maybe, he rides the pine for a game, and just to get him refreshed and restarted again.
Yeah, I mean, Amadio obviously is the odd man out right now because of the emergence, if you will. I do got the faceoff stats down here, by the way. So
nice.
Jack Eichel, he's only a career 44.4% in the faceoff circle. His peak was actually with the Vegas Golden Knights at 48.5. This year he's at 41.1. But if you factor, I mean, geez, if we just take off those.
The game.
Just take off 15 and 4 on each side. So hold on. So we're going to be 18. We're going to be 18 for 52. Let's get the calculator now. 50.
Jeez, look at this. This is live in real time, folks.
By 50. Yeah, he's like still like 40-something%.
40,
whatever. But
40-something%.
Point being is, yeah, it's a rough game all around. What were we even just talking about? I just totally lost everything I was saying.
No, it's okay. We were talking about Cotter, perhaps.
Oh, Cotter, yes. So. Yeah, Mario, the odd man out. The Winnipeg game.
Leschyshyn didn't play, and he was a hometown guy last night.
Yeah,
right?
but listen, I mean, they haven't.
Western Canada guy?
Probably, according to Daryl Sutter. But they're not going to make, I don't think, any wholesale changes on a winning streak besides the goalie situation. So I guess maybe tomorrow will be the preview show, but I'll scratch the surface right now and say Amadio draws in tomorrow, because I think they're going to want him ready to go for Saturday against Colorado. And I think we go Hill on Thursday and back to LT on Saturday.
Interesting. Okay. And you think that's the schedule? That's the plan?
I think that's the plan. I mean, listen, 2 very tough games inside of a 5-day span with the travel time and everything in between there. And Winnipeg, less than Calgary and Colorado, if we're going to make a math equation out of this. So Hill would be in a good spot to start Thursday's game to keep him fresh. And I think that's what the script calls for. And obviously we'll find out about 29 or so hours from right now.
Coming up next, we'll talk about goaltending and Logan Thompson keeping VGK in last night's game. And that included perhaps the save of the year. We'll be back with more. It will be a statue. You're right. Back with more after this on Locked On Golden Knights. Thanks for making Locked On VGK your first listen today. Now make your second listen Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers each and every game across the NHL with local analysis, including our very own Chris Kolesar, that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Tony Cardasco, Chris Kolesar from Las Vegas. And before the break, we were talking about goaltending. And again, you have to lead off with LT, that save off of the stick of Tyler Toffoli as he's leaning a little to the left and then falls to the right, falls down, comes up with a spectacular glove save on the puck. And then this, I think, was the save of the game. And then it kind of signaled to me sort of the arrival, right, of Logan Thompson and just some of the saves, the spectacular saves that he can make. And I saw an awful lot. You talked about a statue, perhaps. I know that his tutor was Marc-Andre Fleury when Fleury was here, and he learned from the best, and he does make those acrobatic saves. But that was spectacular, and definitely I think that's one of those saves we need to put in the Louvre.
Oh yeah, there's definitely that'll be on every pregame show that the Golden Knights do, every hype video. I'm sure it's on Twitter all over the place right now, and but Logan Thompson in the postgame interview last night made some interesting comments about his playing style, and he said he prides himself on not giving up on the puck. He thinks he does that better, and he also made the comment that it's not going to be pretty at times. It's going to get a little. When you got to sell out to make a save, that's just what happens. And that's, when goalies do weird things, like they have their butt facing the players and their head is facing the goal, and, weird things happen like that. But point being is LT is he's poised, but acrobatic, right? Marc-Andre Fleury was not a poised goalie. And I don't mean that negatively towards Marc-Andre Fleury. He is just much, much more movements. So let's talk about Robin Lehner. And again, I'm not bashing Robin Lehner, but Robin Lehner does not move much. He takes up a lot of the nets, and his style is based off of positioning and letting the puck hit him. Marc-Andre Fleury is much smaller. He's definitely a lot skinnier, definitely a lot shorter, and the pads are maybe a little bit smaller. So he has to move his body a lot more. And there's times it gets real ugly when Marc-Andre Fleury's in the net, but he makes these amazing saves and gets back to it. I think you look at Logan Thompson, he's right in the middle right now, right? Logan Thompson is a bigger body than Marc-Andre Fleury, I believe. But he is significantly quicker to the puck than Robin Lehner is, but with a little more poise than Marc-Andre Fleury had. And when you look at that in the big picture, as far as what that could lead to as a long-term career, LT could be the making of a spectacular, goalie who's going to go down as a very long time serviceable goalie in the NHL. And, the sky is the limit for how good he might actually get as far as accolades go and awards and, potentially leading a team to a Stanley Cup victory this year, next year, whatever in his career. We are watching the emergence of a brand new, we can't call him a top tier goalie. It's too early, but he continues to, and this is something we've said a lot of times on this show, we're concerned about the goaltending, right? We're concerned. But the first thing I point out about Logan Thompson is the fact that he has passed every single test that's put in front of him ever since he has become a professional paid athlete at the AHL level and above. Best goalie in the AHL, continued to do a great job with Henderson the year after that. So the year last year when he was called up to the Golden Knights, the Silver Knights were absolutely decimated because of all the injuries for the Golden Knights. And he was still putting up good numbers, having success as far as, his save percentage. His goals against were rough, but that's because he was facing a ton of quality shots. So Look what he did last year in the NHL. He gave the Vegas Golden Knights an opportunity to qualify for the postseason. And to start this season, same thing, right where we left off, right? I mean, VGK could have stole at least a point last night for no effort, anything besides what Logan Thompson did. So, all the credit in the world for LT for doing everything that he does. And, this is a special situation. And, what happens with Robin Leonard next year? That's going to be interesting, but that'll be our off-season popcorn conversations.
You are right in guessing that it should be Adin Hill on Thursday night against Winnipeg for a variety of reasons too. And although that was a grueling game, okay, he had 40 shots on goal, saved 37 in the contest. But that was a hard fought game. And then just mentally as a goaltender, with Calgary having the man advantage there for pretty much the entirety of an entire period, takes a lot of concentration. That was a grueling game for Logan Thompson, and I have to agree with you. I think for no other reason, get him back, get him refreshed, and have him come back for the big game against Colorado on Saturday. I have to agree with you there, but that was one of those hard games, very difficult game, I think, for Logan Thompson, both physically and mentally. I thought he was a little bit miffed at the team afterwards. He said all the right things, but I could read his body language, and he wasn't too happy about having, Calgary with the man advantage every time in that second period. 6 penalties, but all in succession too. There was 6 straight penalties. What? And a lot of that, of course, you do have to credit Calgary for attacking and finding those gaps and getting the penalties called on VGK.
So a few things here. One, and this actually does tie in, I promise, but last night on the ice when I was officiating at lifeguard, just whoever these people were, this is a 9-10 D-League adult game. And there was like 10, 12, 15 people in the stands cheering for one of the teams, but they're out there doing the shame every time someone goes into a penalty box and having fun. And we actually had a lighthearted moment. So I was the trail ref, meaning I was the one behind the play, which based on my skating ability, that's more times than not, unfortunately. But I was the trail. And so I was coming up on where the fans were sitting right about at the red line. Something happens, a player falls, and I hear one of the people in the stands, "Come on, ref." So I skate by, but then I turn around and stop and just go and stare right at the person dead in the eye. And I kept the stone face for a second. Then I started smiling. It was a good moment. But, one thing I was thinking about with all these penalties that were called in the second period is the type of pressure that I feel when stuff like this happens. Now, again, folks, I'm a rec league referee. I want to be clear about this. I'm not coming to you guys like some expert referee, because I'm far from that. But what I can tell you is, whether it's youth, adults, or anything in between, once you call a bunch of penalties in a row on a team, you feel some level of pressure, not to make it up or anything like that, but the first penalty that gets called, whatever, no big deal. The second penalty you call against a team in succession, you might get an eye roll or something like that, no big deal. But once you call that third penalty, if it keeps on going, you're starting to feel some tension, because that they're getting mad, whether it's deserved or not. There is emotion that definitely goes into all of that. So it's I had one more point I wanted to make. I'm trying to remember what that was. But yeah, point being is, you do feel that as an official, some pressure. So go back to you, Tony. I'm going to think about what else I wanted to say there.
No, I was just going to also add that Laurent Brossoit has been getting more ice time in practice too. So what are they going to do with Laurent Brossoit?
I want to look at Cap Friendly. I was talking. Oh, okay. Here, Tony, hold on. I got on my phone here. So I was actually doing some research. I don't know if you can see that based on the lighting or not.
No.
But I was curious where you were going to go with Adin Hill, because I never know what the heck you're going to say. And you said here's why they might go with Adin Hill. So first I looked up what was his birthplace to see if he has some Winnipeg connection. But he was born, it's spelled COMOX. So is that Camo? Would you say Camo? He was born in Camo, BC. So I don't think that's
probably Camo. Probably Camo.
Camo. Okay, all right. Well,
I don't know.
But no, what I just want to look up something else. I don't know. I'm a mess this morning, Tony. I'm a mess. I was going to look up something really fast.
Who, Brossoit? Anything?
Oh, Brossoit.
Where's he going to fit in?
No, I want to know, because I was talking to someone yesterday. Is he officially on IR right now? That's what I want to look up right now.
Oh, good question. I believe he is. He has to be, right? They have to have him on IR because, otherwise he'd go against the cap.
Right,
Guy
but
Hutchinson got shelled last night. I think he lost the game against.
so Brossoit right now is injured reserve with the $2.3 million hits. Injured reserve with a $2.3 million hit. So now it's not long term though. So is there a difference of IR versus LTIR as far as it counts against the cap? That's if someone out there is more in the know about something like this than me, please hit us up. I'll do some research, but maybe Tony, that's a topic we can save for as it gets a little closer, is assuming that 2.3 is going to count against VGK. What do we do?
Yeah,
what do we do?
For sure. And do you think that I want to know if you feel that Aiden Hill can have a consistent, effort? I'm curious to see how this team rebounds. What's the response of VGK after a loss like that? I mean, they were up 2-0, right? And they had all the everything, momentum going their way and all of that. And then they just kind of fell apart, in that game. And I'm curious to see if there's any kind of carryover from that game into Thursday night's game. I think that's going to be my biggest question mark is can they now just get things headed in the right direction again? 3-0, they weren't beating the world beater teams. I mean, they weren't knocking off the top tier teams, let's face it, in the NHL. So we'll see how they respond coming back against Winnipeg, and then the big game against Colorado coming up on Saturday night. I just wanted to say Calgary.
I know you did. I'm surprised that took you this long to only say it for the second or third time of the show, but the fourth line, I mean, let's kind of talk about that for a second. So unfortunately, with all those penalties, the fourth line is basically forgotten about when that happens, besides Nic Roy out there killing penalties from time to time. But the very first, again, I watched the highlights of the game last night, and the first highlight they showed was the face-off win, and it goes back to the defenseman who fires the Hail Mary, so to speak, into the boards in a set play. And I think Will Carrier was the chaser, and it creates, not necessarily a scoring opportunity, but it gets the puck in a plus situation, which could possibly lead to goals. And 2 games in a row now, the fourth line has scored the first goal of the game. So the fourth line is doing their job, and we're in that spot, Tony, where the fourth line is getting all this weird, uncomfortable yet incredibly comfortable attention. But on the same token, from the physicality side, outworked, and but still the fourth line keeps doing what they're doing, which is contributing goals from time to time while giving that energy, that's going to bode really well for the top 9 as well.
Yeah, that would have been a good game for VGK to steal. And
even a point, even 1 point would have been nice.
Yeah, the defenseman not good either. We talked about the top 6, but again, and Zach Whitecloud, 2 penalties, and 4 penalties again for the defenseman.
And then the second goal, he took the puck right to the shoulder, and it bounced to the other player, and just bad. And when it rains, it pours sometimes.
Yeah, Martinez and that sloppy. That was the first bad goal, I guess, that VGK's given up, and that wasn't on Logan Thompson.
No, it was a bad goal. Just went up in
the air and off of the stick, right, of Alec Martinez.
No, so it looked like Petro got his stick under LT's glove, which made something else weird happen.
Crazy. All right, tomorrow on the show, we'll be previewing the game against Winnipeg tomorrow night. Thanks for making Locked On VGK your first listen today. For your second listen, make sure that you go and check out Game to Game NHL. Again, that is free and available wherever you get your podcast, including the Odyssey app. For my man, Chris Golick, I'm Tony Cardasco from Las Vegas. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Golden Knights. Take care.